Hello and welcome to a very special Wicked Off Topic. The much threatened, actually finally happening, only slightly late but still totally relevant Game of Thrones spoiler cast. Consider this your spoiler warning for the rest of the podcast. We will be talking in depth on how we feel about Game of Thrones, the books, the video games, I guess, potentially, the TV show, obviously. So yeah, expect spoilers. If you, for some reason, have not caught up on Game of Thrones and want to remain spoiler-free, A, good luck, and B, stop listening. Come back for our next upload. It will be the normal podcast. I promise there won't be Game of Thrones spoilers there. Actually, no, I won't promise that, but there shouldn't be Game of Thrones spoilers there. We're getting it out here. So, yeah, welcome. We're talking Game of Thrones, hence why it's an off-topic cast. But, yeah, as always, I'm Charlie, joined by Henry and Alex. We have things to say about the Game of Thrones, a game that I've been led to believe that either you win or you die, or you wind up on this podcast talking about the TV show.
Yep. Or you end up on the wall.
Yep. Oh, this podcast is the pop culture equivalent of being sent to the wall.
Yeah.
No one's getting laid, it's terrible, it's cold, and we have to stop people from... We have to stop giants and worse things.
Yeah. All right.
Yes, welcome. So to kick us off, I guess I'd like to talk about how we all wound up watching or partaking of or invested in Game of Thrones, if you will. I personally kind of watched the first couple episodes of the TV show, looked up that it was a book ultimately, kind of got through the first season to see if I liked the thing, and then powered through all the books that were available, and now, as books have come out, have kept up with the books, but also kept up with the TV show, because TV is pretty easy to keep up with when it's 12 episodes, once a year kind of thing. I fully admit that I am definitely one of those kind of push the glasses up the nose, in the books types when it comes to this. The time periods where people would be like, oh shit, I can't believe that happened, I'd sit there and go, oh, you've seen nothing, you poor summer child kind of thing. Yes, I was one of those smug assholes, and I will continue to be one of those people when it comes to Game of Thrones, because, yeah, I just never believed the TV show would have an adequate ending compared to the books, and I appear to maybe be right in that regard. But enough about that for now. Henry, how did you find yourself involved in the Game of Thrones?
Well, essentially, I heard that their HBO was going to be making a fantasy TV series, and pretty early on I knew I was very interested in it because I love fantasy as a genre. I guess I've been reading fantasy pretty much since I've been reading, to be honest, and so for me it was like I heard that this. But the thing is, I had not heard about the books that much before, like. I only knew about the books after the series was announced. After the series was announced, and I was like, oh, you know what, I'll look into this. Oh, okay, so there's books. This is based on books. And so, yeah, I'm interested in fantasy. When I heard about it announced by HBO that they're actually doing this sweeping fantasy epic, I was instantly convinced. I knew I was probably going to watch it all. It was very likely that I was going to watch it all. Because also I kind of trust HBO to put out some good series as well. So I knew that they wouldn't skimp on it. That they would, whatever they were going to do, they're going to go all out. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I came into it. I had heard about it, started watching some episodes. Yeah, got super into it.
So
I have not read as much. I'm about halfway through the third book. So, yeah, so, I mean, it was like, oh, fantasy TV series? I'm down.
So before we move on to Alex and kind of get his take on how he wound up in the Game of Thrones verse, if you will, was this your first HBO show?
No. Definitely not.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, I watched The Sopranos.
Okay, yeah. Some things I've picked up on is that a lot of people didn't know HBO occasionally even existed prior to getting involved in the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So, Alex, how did you find yourself involved in the game?
I watched the moving pictures on the TV screen.
I want to make an uncultured hick joke right now, but that doesn't seem fair.
I mean, I like fantasy shows. I partake in this genre, if you will, and I heard about Game of Thrones from a few people, and I was like, okay, I will check it out. I pretty much was invested in the show mainly through the TV show, but not actually the books. So, just context for what I'm going to be discussing and going over today, my stuff as far as it goes. I have not read any of the books, and to be honest, I probably don't plan to. At least not immediately.
I kind of might make the argument of let the books finish, because...
Yeah.
As someone who's not 100% sure R. Martin's going to finish that whole thing, I would really be pissed off if the only ending we get for the show is, or end of the series, is the one we have to put up with from the show. But, yeah, they are... For those not familiar with the books, each one is a tome. I think, like, the shortest ones all easily break 1,000 pages. I think one or two of them get close to, and maybe do break 2,000 pages. These are hefty volumes of literature. Like, these aren't light and kind of easy to get through books like Harry Potter or other kind of big pop culture. Even the Witcher books, by comparison, are light and easy to get through. The phrase someone described to me once is that, say there was 100 chapters in one Game of Thrones book. Every chapter progresses the plot 1%, which, while cool, can also make reading these books exhausting. But they're also fantastic books, and if you're into kind of that Tolkien world-building style thing of just no question left unanswered, hypothetically, they're an impressive feat, and that's how you kind of wind up with that. But yes. So before I guess we kind of get into the deep, super spoilery aspects of the final season and kind of how we feel about that and all that jazz, I want to take us in to kind of talk about what Game of Thrones meant to each one of us. For me, it was just kind of a dark fantasy show that I got into. I never got into the show as much as other people did. I guess, like, I read the books, but, like, they're not even my favorite dark fantasy books. There are aspects of them I definitely enjoy a lot. I never quite got as deep, I guess I'm trying to get, as a lot of people did. Like, my fiance has literally watched the show start to kind of end of season 7 easily 10 times over, potentially closer to, like, 15, 20. Like, she was a huge fan of the show, and, like, her reaction to season 8 was so strong, it's actually knocked it out of her kind of idle in the background TV show rotation, which is a feat unto itself. But of the three of us, I actually have, like, the least to say in some ways, because it's like, it's Game of Thrones, fuck it, whatever. I'm on to other shit already.
You could be our arbiter.
Yes, I suspect that'll be the role I will be taking in this case. So, Alex, what did Game of Thrones mean to you as a pure viewer, if you will?
I mean, I thought it was a good show. It was. But yeah. I mean,
any
it
favorite
was just
moments, like any oh shit, or like what was your first oh shit, this is definitely a show I'm going to watch more of moment?
I don't know if I have a definite oh shit moment. I just know I enjoyed it I just kind of enjoyed it, but I think if you want to pick like an oh shit moment, it's realizing that they have no problem killing off main characters.
Sure.
I think that was my big, like, oh, damn.
Was this the first show you watched they were kind of more than happy to kill off mainline top tier characters and talent like that?
So easily? Yeah, probably.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was definitely that, and I think also just some of the characters, all the characters were very, like, they all kind of brought something to the table, if you will. Like, I enjoyed all the shiftiness and crazy, what's the word I'm looking for? All the shiftiness of, like, Varys and Littlefinger, and, like, I like that there are people who were pretty scummy in terms of who they are.
Sure.
And then you have somebody like Ned Stark, who was super honorable. And then you think he's not exactly honorable because there's, like, kind of a crack in the armor, if you will, because he has a bastard son. But then later on you find out that he turns out was absolutely honorable. And to almost to a fault even, because he's just like,
Oh, definitely to a fault, but go
yeah,
on.
like,
Some might say it's what gets him killed.
Yes.
well, yeah, and ultimately it does get him killed. But like, I respected him for it, and I also kind of just respected that like some characters were
Sure.
very like they were just, they all kind of brought to the table. Like, even some of my favorite characters, alive or dead. Like, I will say right now, two of my favorite characters on that show were Oberyn Martell and Ramsay Bolton. Like, I loved both those characters.
Very opposite ends of the spectrum with those two characters.
Yeah. Like, okay, well,
Though,
I mean,
though
if
I will say they're similar in that they're both driven by their passions and emotions.
yeah.
Like over sort of, at least within the show, they're both driven by their passions and emotions over what would be practically actually good for them to do
Mhm.
or beneficial. But
yeah.
anyways.
But like, I like the, I guess, the edginess too as well, because they were pretty dark. Like, when you have moments like everyone, I mean, I heard about Red Wedding, and so I know it's a crazy ass scene. I didn't know what happens exactly. I just know it's a crazy scene because people talked about it, and then I saw it happen, and I was like, oh goddamn, okay. But like, I'm like, oh, they can't be that bad, and then like at some point, like, they murder orphans and babies, and they're just like killing them all. Like, oh, that they just stabbed the child. Okay, this is weird. So, yeah, no, I just really enjoyed the show itself. Like, it was just overall, I really liked the writing. The characters all really brought something to the table, and even though you had so many different story arcs and things going on, like, everyone kind of brought something to the table, which was really enjoyable.
Sure, and that's actually a big aspect of the book. Like, it's a lot of this. What makes the books interesting is they're all kind of first-person narrative, and they bounce around from character to character.
Yeah,
it's
all the
quite possible
POV chapters.
Yeah, and it's quite possible to have like hundreds of pages in the books that don't relate to each other for hundreds of pages more.
Yeah.
I think the show did a great job of capturing.
We'll get to that.
Up until a certain point, but
Yeah.
But yeah.
So there was so like I said, I really enjoyed that part, and that's why probably I was so disappointed with this last season. It's just like, I think the writing like probably was just didn't
we will
do it
get to this in a couple
Yeah.
minutes. Henry gets to have his due of kind of like if he had any favorite moments in the show before we kind of get to the meat of this conversation, if you will.
Fair.
So Henry, did you have any kind of like big favorite moments of the show? Any like oh shit moments? Any like a moment that locked you in kind of for life, for lack of a better phrase?
Oh, well, it was definitely Sean doing the thing that Sean Bean usually does in most media he's ever in, which
Live
is
long
die.
lives?
Yeah. Live long lives and live to the end. Yep, yeah. I mean, honestly, just seeing that they are that willing to just, in the same way that nothing's sacred. And for me, really, the even bigger thing is the fact that this was a show that was low fantasy, as it's sometimes referred to. And so you have the fantasy aspect. I mean, very early on, it's clear that dragons existed and that there's some weird magic stuff going on to a certain extent. We learn a little bit about the North and their mythos and stuff. First season doesn't really go too much into that, and that's a good thing. But yeah, we don't really get. I mean, low fantasy. I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing to even see something like Lord of the Rings, and which is high fantasy, very much high fantasy, and seeing that brought to the masses. But this is interesting, and and I think for me it was just when I went. All right, so I went to a special showing of the last episode over in I went to a hotel. It was actually a bar and a hotel that they were showing it in here in LA. And so I went and watched the final episode with a ton of people. And I'm looking around there, I'm like, this isn't the usual crowd that I would expect from, like the conventions that I have gone to in the past. That are, I've gone to fantasy conventions. I've straight up, like gone to like Dragon Con and stuff like that. So and been to Renaissance fairs and
No,
things like that. And
to
so for me, it was like just seeing it was really meaningful seeing just this, looking out across this room. I'm like, many different ages, and not a whole lot of people I would expect to have been into fantasy of all things. I mean, even with Lord of the Rings and how wildly popular that was. I mean, it's, unquestionable how wildly popular it was. I mean, walking into this room and seeing a genre that I've been a fan of forever, just widely celebrated and cheered and booed, and people going nuts over this final episode in a room full of people. I mean, that was very cool. So I like the fact that also for me it was bringing so many different people together. And that's kind of what
I was going to say, when I wasn't busy chortling into my books, being like, oh, nothing TV watchers, you sweet summer children, it was really cool to watch just kind of how many people got into the show. Like, the numbers, like, it's one thing to say the show has some of the highest, like, viewed shows out there, but, like, this went from, like, a show that could just be kind of a niche thing for nerds to, man, everyone fucking watches this show. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, it's not like there haven't been other sort of attempts. I mean, or even successful attempts. Like there's a show Merlin for a while, and that kind of got darker and dirtier than a lot of other high fantasy that usually involves Merlin, and I mean, but that was not nearly as in depth or beloved as Game of Thrones. So nothing's even gotten close to this. So it's extraordinary.
Yeah. No, and it kind of like my moment for me, because I knew it. One of the fun parts of being a book reader as opposed to kind of just a vanilla show watcher, if you will. I apologize. Every time I say I'm going to come off condescending, I have no better way of saying it, unfortunately. I do apologize in advance. Like, you got to watch people not know things, and that was kind of a really cool set of moments that you got to have, where, like, like every time people thought it was like, oh, the show can't get more gritty than this, you had to sit there and be like, oh,
Red Wedding.
Yeah, I remember the Red Wedding and people being like, oh shit, and then me being like, oh, it's real cool you think this is the worst the show gets. We haven't even gotten to Oberyn yet.
Yeah, no, I was crushed by Oberyn, and I should have known better.
Yep.
To, like, considering, like, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is like, like, considering this is like a show where main characters die, why would I fall in love with a character? No.
I would argue that, like, even though you can know by then that Oberyn's probably going to die because Game of Thrones, the way in which Oberyn dies, like, it's the knowing Oberyn's going to die is not detracted from the fact that is, I think, one of the most shocking moments for so many people. Like, it's for a show that spends so much time reminding you and telling you and spelling out the good guys rarely win because the bad guys play dirty and that lets them win. Like, that's kind of, I think, an epitome moment for so many people where it's like, man, there is not going to be a happy ending. Like, fuck, we have this guy who's kind of like, he's in theory on par skill-wise and technique-wise with the Mountain, maybe superior, and he still gets wrecked ultimately. And not and it's not like some like clean death. It's horrible.
Yeah, but it's not that because he technically would have won, but the problem is you monologuing until you've confirmed your kill is something you should do. You should always monologue after you confirm kill. Like, you don't monologue before. So that was his thing. He was, if anything, the Mountain didn't defeat him. His arrogance and killed him.
Oh yeah, that's clear.
Oberyn kind of acts actually as kind of the introduction to that theme, because at least in the books, prior to that moment, you hadn't had this idea of arrogance being the biggest downfall of so many people. Like, you had naivety, kind of honor, you had all these other traits, but, like, this was the first time it was no, cocky will get you killed in this universe too. Like, you can be the best fighter, and you'll still lose if you mess up. Like, 'cause we had so many examples of, like, Braun winning crazy fights and stuff like that. Like, people kept slipping out of situations that should have gotten them kind of based on hubris and ego alone occasionally.
Well, I mean, I'd argue that Renly and actually the Baratheons, all the Baratheons in general, suffer from the same thing.
Yeah.
Massive, massive egos, where they basically thought, each of them kind of really thought they were really invincible. And that doesn't work when that was never going to work out with the three brothers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the thing. I think it was introduced, but not so clearly and on the nose. I mean, all right, so Renly dying was a combination of multiple things. Robert, same thing, combination of things. But there's ego in there. But yeah, in this case, it was just, well, I guess a certain amount of ego, but his was also righteous indignation and anger.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, like I think the most fascinating thing is like on the topic of Stannis. Stannis in the books for Stannis in the show are almost two completely different characters. I think as a book reader, that's one of the first times that the character in the show is not a bad version of the same character, but it's a real departure in some ways, at least for me, of what the character in the book was all about. Like there's an opportunistic angle in the books I think the show lacks for Stannis.
Yeah.
But it's not. I might argue the version of Stannis in the show might be a better character in some ways. I like him a little bit more, but not like him because Stannis fucking sucks. But like, he feels more competent in the books. He kind of feels aggressively entitled and only kind of embraces the whole the Red Witch stuff because it seems to be working.
Yeah. Okay. I guess, and that's possibly where I'm kind of mixing up a bit. You know, my thought of Stannis of having the ego. It's not really played as much in the show.
Yeah.
It's played way more in the books.
Yeah. Yeah, like they touch on it in the shows, but like it's in the books they make a big deal of like Stannis is almost as good a kind of field tactician, if not better in some ways than his brother was. Like the dude knows how to go to war on paper.
Yeah.
So before we kind of lose ourselves too badly in the weeds, you two have had various things to say about kind of the arc of the show and the final season and kind of your relationship with the show. It's time to get into that. Who wants to go first on that?
Actually, you know what? Since I went first with the first part, Henry, you should go first on this one.
All right. So do we want to should I kind of start going into like the show as a whole? Yeah, I think I'll kind of go into that first.
Freeform it, if you will. The floor is yours.
All right, so I think I'm going to do a little bit of like what I like and what I don't like, some like good stuff, bad stuff type of thing. So give that a little bit. So what did I like? I love the acting and I love the actors. I think the casting was spot on. I think it was just fantastic. The actors did great at their roles. They brought it to life. Their dialogue was generally written well, and they generally delivered the dialogue well. I mean, and there's nuance, a lot of nuance to the way all the characters were played by the actors. And so, yeah, the acting, awesome. Presentation, as I mentioned before, HBO, they don't tend to skimp. This is a big production, and they put a lot of money into it. And just kept putting in more and more when they saw that it was wildly popular. And so the way everything looked, the presentation of it all is just amazing. I mean, really extraordinary. And I mean, it's as good as you can ask for somebody trying to bring a fantasy book to a TV series. I mean, you look at the settings, the scenes, you look at the costuming even. A lot of time put into the costuming and everything. It's just fantastic. It looks great, and it is great. I enjoyed the story overall. I think the story overall is, George R. R. Martin is a master story writer. And all they basically need to do is just adapt it well. And generally, I feel like they did. When it came to adapting his books, they did a heck of a job of bringing it to the screen with some changes, and me personally, I don't mind the changes. That's fine with me. I like it.
Especially in the earlier seasons, I think some of the changes that were made were smart ones. Like I'm not sure if I'm going to talk about this, like the tone, like the books have way more magic than the show does. And I
Yes,
think the
yes.
emphasis on the mysticism angles actually works in this instance because, good lord, would some of that mysticism been hard to do in the show.
Well, they bring back Caitlin Stark
Yeah, Lady
as
Stoneheart.
as Lady Stoneheart, and that's really kind of needless. It's not really a thread in the books that I think is particularly good.
Well, it's not clear what's going yet. Like they spend so much time being like, "Yo, she's alive," and just to hold her throat together to speak, but then like she disappears for 2 books.
Yeah. So I think maybe he feels the same. Like, what am I doing with this character? So yeah, but I mean, yeah, the story overall, I really like it. I like the adaptation, what they've adapted. I think they did a heck of a job. I don't care for a perfect adaptation. I don't think you need that or want that. I want to see something. I also like to see something new sometimes when I see something adapted.
Yeah.
And sometimes things just don't work when you put them to the screen. Some things you just have to fill out differently. Some stories you have to write a little differently. So it works on a screen better than it does in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for one thing, like, the books are full of POV chapters, and that doesn't work for a TV series like this. Yeah. So instead of being able to go into people's thoughts, you have, and this is the thing that I felt like they did well, and was probably the most difficult thing of what they had to do, was they had to deal with the fact that while in the books you get everybody's thoughts. Well, not everybody's, but all the POV characters, you get their thoughts and opinions on things. They had to do it completely differently for the TV series, but still make sure that they built these characters well, and they built them meaningfully, without using thought bubbles, or some voiceover for thinking, which I'm really glad they never did any voiceover for somebody's thoughts. They never did that even a single time. Good on them, because that it's not necessary, and I really don't think it would have fit here. I think it would have been dumb. So yeah. So those are the things that overall I really liked. Things that I didn't. So many dropped threads. So, and I won't go too far into them. Maybe I will.
It's spoiler cast. Go for it, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So dropped threads. Dropped threads, and also poorly done. Dorne in general. They did Dorne a massive disservice. They did the Sand Snakes a massive disservice. They did the only thing they did well was Oberyn. But they did Oberyn really well. Oh, yeah, there's a reason he got so beloved in such a short period of time. He was played brilliantly by the actor. Written well. Great character. But yeah, the rest of Dorne, they just didn't know what they're doing, and just really dropped that thread entirely, to the point that it was like, oh, in the last episode, there's a new prince. Oh, okay. We don't know anything about that, but yeah, the entire thing, like what they did with the Sand Snakes, was what? Why? And then why? I mean, why would you have them basically just be sociopaths when they are not that in the books? They are political masterminds in the books, especially the Ilaria Sand. They aren't ham-fisted idiots, and that's really what they became in this TV show. And so
what you're saying is you want a good girl, but you really want the bad pussy.
Oh God, no. But yeah, they were done a horrible disservice, because
Dorne was a fucking train wreck.
And in the books, Dorne is really cool, and the political intrigue is fascinating.
It's like mildly democratic too, isn't it, or something? Like,
yes.
Like the whole point of Dorne in the books is it's pretty different from the rest of the kingdoms. And it's also got the weird claim to fame of it's the only place that kind of resisted the dragons and the Targaryens. Like, it's
they have princes.
Yeah.
They don't have lords.
Yeah.
They actually aren't even a part of the Seven Kingdoms when they say Seven Kingdoms. They're not one of them.
Mm.
They are.
They're not.
No, I
They
don't
are,
think
but
they
they're
are.
not.
They are, but
Okay.
they're not.
They
Yeah,
offer with more
it's-
independence. It's so the books make a bigger deal also of the fact that like the North is almost its own whole nightmare unto itself. Like it's the idea
Yeah.
of the Warden in the North and stuff like that is a bigger deal. Where it's like, we're technically part of the Seven Kingdoms, but yeah, fuck all y'all south of us.
Yeah, but yeah, I really hated just drop threads and overall poorly done Dorn and the Sand Snakes. Bad, just bad. But yeah, I think this will go into a larger idea that I want to get into a bit later. But yeah, the drop threads are the things that I like the least.
Yeah.
Drop threads also with the Iron Islands in general, also done poorly. Dropped threads done poorly, not good, like not nearly what it should be.
The Iron Island stuff is so badly done. I almost don't understand why you'd bother including it. Like it's the version of Euron Greyjoy we got is so not Euron Greyjoy to the point where it's like just don't have him in the show. Like you obviously don't know what to do with him. Just don't have him.
It's a shame because the actor they picked for him is amazing. He's so good.
Yeah.
It could have been so awesome because straight up like the character is super good. I mean, that actor just they just didn't utilize him.
So that actor is fucking phenomenal. Yeah. But you guys need to back off on Euron Greyjoy, the pirate on the show, okay? Because he had one of the most clear, concise character arcs this entire series had, okay? It makes sense because throughout the whole series, his goal was to fuck the queen, and this plot extended further when he fucked the queen. And the arc came to a thrilling conclusion when he fought the other man who fucked the queen.
Yeah. Yeah. Super dumb.
Yes. The issue being that Euron from the books is busy, like, practicing warlock stuff and has a horn that may or may not control dragons and, like, kills gods for a hobby and has a warlock eye and...
Yeah, the guy, he is amazing in the books.
He's a cool dude. A monster of a character, but also, like, it's the, man, you are so cool. Horrible, but man, are you cool. Like, you are the... In a book, in a franchise full of the edgelordiest edgelords that ever edgelorded kind of thing, like, we're talking Ramsay Bolton and Joffrey and shit like that, the fact that you have Euron who's, like, just as... Yeah, I fucking throw puppies off the rail, but somehow, like, loops around you, like, but you're still cool somehow, is a testament to that character.
He's basically the Ted Bundy of the group. I mean, whereas, like, Ramsay is just John Wayne Gacy. Like, nobody's really attracted to him.
And that's the thing.
He's just a really, like, not cool... He doesn't make people swoon when he gets near them. Yeah, I mean, basically, for me, like, Euron was a twisted version of Oberyn in many ways. Like, they have a lot of personality similarities.
Yeah,
but
they are
whereas
Swagger
Oberyn
the character
is
personified.
Whereas Oberyn is more of the I like things that feel good, and I like feeling good, and I prefer other people to feel good. And that's where my libertine lifestyle goes. Whereas the libertine lifestyle of Euron Greyjoy is horror and torture and Ramsay. Yeah, they're like, he makes Ramsay look like a pansy in many ways because he uses crazy warlock magic.
Yeah. So, dude literally has an eye patch, not because he's missing an eye, but to cover up his crazy OP warlock eye. Yeah.
So it's just, he's just characterized better, and it's just, God, that's the thing. It's like when they that was the things I didn't like when they did characters a vast disservice on the way that they were written. I mean, and that's probably the ones that I think were the most egregious. I mean, I also, I do, and I don't know. Alright, so I'm also kind of a big fan of House Tyrell, and I think they did a lot with them. I think they did a lot of cool stuff, but I don't know. There's some ways of what they did with them. I was just like, okay.
They're fine, though, I think. I think they got the overall gist, which is they are schemers and politicians, not fighters necessarily.
Yeah, not fighters at all. I mean, they make light of it. They're like, our sigil's a flower. Everybody else has, like, dragons and wolves. We have flowers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's...
To loop back to Euron for a second, so...
Yeah.
Like, to Alex's point, like, actor can fucking act, and I think that's what hurt me the most, which is, like, it's a great casting for Euron. Like, the guy...
Yeah, he's so good.
The guy has the right person. He kind of nails the, like, fucking pirate swaggery vibe going on. But then what he's given to work with was bad, and, like, I point to that moment, like, Euron was the moment I'm like, I'm not gonna be as into the show as I used to be, kind of thing. Like, they took one of my favorite characters and just left it a shell character, and it was early on enough that I'm like, let's start tempering the expectations for the rest of this shit.
Yeah, I mean, and really the worst of him comes after, and this is a part of a greater topic I want to talk about at length, which is whenever the show went past the books.
Yeah.
And but right now I was just kind of, wanting to talk about, like, the good and the bad.
Sure.
And what I like the most. All right, so other things. All right, so I'm going to come up with a few good points. All right, so there's some things that I am glad they skipped it. I'm glad that they didn't cover it all in the show. And yeah, the show's better for it. All right, so the side thread with Jon Connington and Aegon and the other person claiming to be Aegon Targaryen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I think even in the books, it already feels like George R. R. Martin doesn't know what he wants to do with these characters. I find their side plot really unfascinating. I think the idea is cool in that, add another army that's apparently also heading over to the Seven Kingdoms to try to take it over, in addition to Daenerys coming over at some point. So, yeah, I think that's interesting, more than one claim. But, no, it's not. For me, that's one of the threads in the book that I was just like, it's not. I'm fine with them not putting it in there.
I think the most damning thing against that argument is, like, Euron feels weird. They have no hints of that plotline anywhere in the show, and you don't miss anything. Like, there's no kind of sharp edge you get caught on going, like, maybe there should have been something else here, I guess. Like, it's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Jon Connington stuff, not unnecessary. All right, so the fake Arya running around, Jane Poole, I'm glad that they skipped that thread.
Yeah.
It's needless. I don't think I feel like in the book, he's just looking for a reason to get rid of it. Because it's just, it doesn't really go anywhere.
I think they're setting stuff up for Arya kills Arya at that point, but...
Yeah, I think what he wanted to figure out was, he couldn't figure out any more. He likes to have people using a lot of political intrigue.
Yeah.
And he's trying to figure out different ways of how can I give this person any sort of weight? How can I give this faction over here something to bargain with? And so he thought of, all right, a fake Arya. It's not that great. So, but maybe it's okay, but I am super fine with that not being in
the in the same vein, the condensed version of the Brotherhood without banners. Like, it's a thing in the show, but it's a much bigger deal in the books. But, maybe it doesn't need to be, actually.
Yeah, and sticking them with Lady Stoneheart really kind of messes with the meaning, because I feel like the only thing that made them interesting was the fact that they were without banners, that they just were a group of freemen. that in a certain many ways very similar to North of the Wall, the Wildlings, that they were kind of a Robin Hood gang, and then in the books they are put in with Lady Stoneheart, and now they're just a revenge gang, and now
they're always kind of a revenge gang in the book, though, too. Like
but now they don't even have any. Now their direction is just solely this woman's vengeance, rather than we're trying to free the countryside.
Yeah,
and that's I mean, freedom fighters freeing the it's and they didn't even get into. I feel like getting into the one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter, and that's where I thought they could do some really cool stuff with the Brotherhood Without Banners. But yeah, there again, there's only so much time to devote in a TV series, and I'm fine that they didn't go too far with that. They used it for some certain setups. I mean, mainly just some interesting stuff with Arya and the Hound in the end. But yeah, I'm cool with that being skipped.
Yeah, this is gonna sound weird. Like in the books, the Brothers Without Banners, I think, is always meant to kind of be the stand-in army for the realm, the people Varys fights for, and the realm never quite gets built up in the show the way it is in the book. Like the show touches on the idea of the common person doesn't give a fuck who's on the Iron Throne. The book hammers on that point with a lot of frequency.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all these lords fighting, no one cares.
What they did, all they know is that we either have food and work or we don't.
We're being made to pay the consequences of someone I've never met getting in a fight with someone else, or I have enough to eat. Yay.
Yeah. To piggyback that on a bit, I felt like if they would have emphasized that more in the show, it would have made the fact that, I mean, at a certain point, I mean, people are like wondering, oh, why is everybody still fine with whoever's on the Iron Throne? Like, why is there not some widespread revolt trying to take Joffrey off, or trying to take Tommen off, trying to whatever, Why isn't it makes more sense if you realize that the people don't care as long as they're fed.
Yeah.
And if they made that a little bit clearer in the TV show like they do in the books, I think that makes more sense. That's why people have no real loyalty to one or another. They're just like, whoever's better for us. Like if we're suffering, but if we're not just suffering, and that's the thing, most people didn't suffer under Joffrey's rule.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that would have actually made that even more interesting, is showing that most people were fine. They didn't care. They didn't know. All kings are brutal and murderous, so it wasn't a big surprise.
You're coming off the Mad King, who was extra terrible.
Yeah. And so they didn't rebel against that. I mean, there was not a common rebellion against any of that. I mean, what happened to the Mad King was not a rebellion against the Mad King.
Well, it was, but not by the people. It was by Robert, who got mad that what he thought was his girlfriend.
Well, Robert was just about Rhaegar. It wasn't even about him wanting the throne.
Yeah.
That just happened. And that literally only happened because, Jaime killed Aerys. And that's it. I mean, it wasn't even necessarily in Robert's plans to be king at all. He was just pissed off. That's pretty much it. And so, the general population's like,
oh, they're fighting again. Oh, joy.
Yeah, great. We're probably going to have bad farming for a while because a lot of people are going to be dead. Great. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But yeah, that's what I kind of feel about that. They could have played that up more in the series, and I think it would have made some of the points seem more sensible. Yeah. But but there's not everything's necessarily coming to mind. I've been trying to write some notes here, but there are other things in the book that I'm just like, it's skipped over in the TV show.
Yeah, cool, we don't have the time or the need to cover kind of all of them. Like, suffice to say, if you enjoy the TV show, you'll probably enjoy the books. There's a lot of stuff in the books that never quite makes it into the show, like the whole subplot hinting at what's his name, Tyrion maybe being a Targaryen and stuff like that.
Yes,
completely absent from the show.
Yeah, I mean, in the books, he has like the white hair, more like one of the Targaryens,
and purple eyes.
and purple eyes.
Yeah.
And so they not so much hint that that there is something between that was the thing that happened. So so that's there's in the books they make a lot more people. There's a lot more people that are trying to claim the throne.
Yeah. Well,
That's one thing I'm glad that the thing is in the show. I think that would get too scattershot. I mean, it was getting difficult as it was keeping up with all these different locales with different things going on.
Well, and like in some of the cases, some of the people that pop up in the books just kind of serve to pop up and add some traction. Like if so many of them get knocked down so quickly, it's like it doesn't make sense to bother even doing some of them.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a positive for me. They skipped things that didn't need to be covered. That's fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
All right. So that's sort of the I kind of wanted to just give my thoughts on good things, bad things, general.
Sure. All right, Alex, you're up.
Okay, so just to kind of go over some initial stuff as far as the show goes. The acting, again, cannot stress this enough. Yeah. Everyone on that show. I don't think there was a person on that show who was miscast that didn't do a good fucking job. Like, everyone on that show was fucking phenomenal. Like, even when the writing at the end just fucking lacked.
Yeah.
Like, the actors are phenomenal. Emilia Clarke's, like, her face when she goes into that descent of madness, fucking brilliant. Like,
her expressions throughout the whole series, like, I mean, she is really good at emoting. And
it's the eyebrows, dude.
Yeah, and doing it with subtleties, a lot of subtleties to her. Yeah, her expressiveness, even just her facial expressions. It
reminds me of there was an article or thing I was looking into about actors who there are very few actors who can do it, but Jake Gyllenhaal is one of these actors as well, who has a really good way of also acting with their eyes extremely well. So when you see like turns of like darkness or like weirdness, like it feels really creepy. So like he has that for sure. Jake Gyllenhaal has that, and Emilia Clarke has that as well. She's just something about the way she does it. It's just her eye work, and then like her eyebrows are just really good. Like she's got super pronounced eyebrows, and they work really well. She's super animated. Or somebody, she's like an emoji came to life, so to speak. But like, so the acting's phenomenal. But
it's never overacted. Like she's never over. It's never melodramatic. The way her expressions.
No, not at all. It's not. She doesn't go full Nick Cage.
Yeah.
So, cinematography on that show, like the way everything's filmed, just everything is so beautifully done. The music, I can't remember the guy's name. I think it starts with an R, and then his last name starts with a D. I'll look it up for right now. But the music on that show also was just phenomenal.
Oh yeah, the music, absolutely.
When you have like Reigns of Castamere playing when the Red Wedding's going on, and all that stuff's going on, that's stupid good. The anxiety that builds up when the Night King's walking right up to Bran, like that music build up, that whole sequence and everything being shot there, it was just so good. Like,
oh yeah.
It's the music was amazing. Like, so everyone else on that show was phenomenal. I don't know where the budget went for the writing this last season.
Okay, so I think this might be as good a time as any to kind of jump into the idea of the books extending out past the show extending out past the books. So there are some details and some plots that get dropped because the show lacks certain things, predominantly the mysticism. Like, and this is like a weird thing to harp on. There are some characters whose names are subtly but drastically different from the book to the show. The weirdest of which is the Night King. In the books, he's the Night's King. In the show, he's the Night King. It is, and down to their origin stories, they're pretty different. Like the show implies the Night King is the original White Walker dude from the tree. In the books, he's not even the original White Walker.
Yeah.
He is like the first Lord Commander of the Night's Watch turned into a White Walker. And
well, that's one of the thoughts.
Yeah, it's
there's a couple of different, even in the books, there's
Yeah.
a couple of different ideas on who he might be. It is widely thought he might be one of the Starks, actually, a Stark that was Lord Commander on the Wall.
Yeah.
And that's the mythos with it. I mean, the story told is it was a Night's Watch commander on the Wall that fell in love with basically what sounds like one of the Whites, the White Walkers.
Yeah, it's
so the Night King. I thought was like the build-up was several seasons long, and it's like it felt really, really good leading up to where it was going, and it just was over. Like,
no, so
okay.
I bring the Night King up because in this situation it's important because, and this kind of gets a little bit kind of nitpicky, if you will, the idea that, and again, like this is going to sound kind of pedantic, I don't think George R. R. Martin knows what the Night King is in a meaningful way just yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he necessarily intended for the Night King to be a pivotal character.
I don't know. I think he's gonna have a big role in the books. I don't think we know. And maybe this is kind of, I've been far enough in the books. I know this. That whole thing of how you make more White Walkers, that hasn't been in the books yet.
No, it hasn't.
Like that was a big deal when that popped up in the show. That was the first time the show got beyond the books, and there's this kind of backlash against the book people from the show rubbing it in the book. It was like, we know something you don't know yet. Which was fine. We totally deserved it at that point. We've been smugged for too many seasons at that point. But, like, the ultimate fate of what the hell the Night King is with the White Walkers even are like, hell, there is no Ice Dragon yet in the books. I assume that'll happen because that's cool as shit, but it's also just as possible that will never happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's possible.
And, like, again, kind of go back to the books for a second. There are so many weird things involving the Night King, the Night's King, and the Wall, and kind of what that all means, and how it ties into Bran and time travel and all that jazz bullshit. That the show just doesn't have the same level of hand-wavy mysticism. It just can't do. Like, it's a lot of the crazy theories out there, like that Bran is like several historical figures, are based off of kind of some of the more weird stuff in the book. The book makes a big deal of bringing up how many fucking people that were Starks have the first name of Bran.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, they introduced a lot of cool stuff here and there. And then, like, that being said, I loved seasons 1 through 7. I think they all kind of brought something to the table. Even when they ran out of book material, season 7 was pretty good. Like, I loved Arya's, like, for me, like, I love Arya's storyline. Like, her whole arc and everything, I loved.
Yeah.
Like, she was fucking great. And she was one of my favorites. Like, she's up there with, like, Ramsay and Oberyn.
Sure.
Like, I will say, I will actually dare say that she's probably number 1 on the list. Of anybody I wanted to see make it through the show, I would say she is my number 1. Like, because she's had a phenomenal development. Like, they bring her on. Or rather, I mean, everyone knows she kills the Night King. If you don't know that by now, you shouldn't be listening to this fucking podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they introduce you to all the cool stuff she can do, like the Faceless Man, the face swapping. She even does a little bit of it here in, like, you know, in Westeros. She does it where she fucking offs the fucking phrase in, like, clean fucking fashion. She was that was probably super. That was just so satisfying. So they introduce like I understand there are certain things that get held out from the books. That's understandable. But there was stuff that was introduced on the show, and they just never means anything ever again in this last season. It meant absolutely nothing that Arya was, like, could do the face swapping or anything like that, or that she was an assassin. All she did was just kind of, she charged the Night King when was ambidextrous. Like, okay.
Well, you could make the argument that all the Faceless Man training is what taught her to be that sneaky and that good at stabbing people in the gut, but you're not wrong. And I'd also bring up the fact that, like, the Faceless Man arc in the books is infuriatingly not done yet, or not coming anywhere near close to an end.
Oh no, yeah, it's not. Yeah, as far as I know,
Okay.
it is
Like,
not finished.
Arya spent like over a book in the House of Many Faces or whatever, the House of Black and White. Like it is
Hmm.
it along with Bran going north are two of the like most fascinating, but also good God, wrap it the fuck up already plot lines in the books that like fans of the book sit there gnashing their teeth going, just fucking tell me where this goes already. I need to know. It's been there forever.
But so far, like George R. R. Martin, I mean, the way he writes, he generally intends to
Yeah.
finish off his plot lines. He doesn't leave hanging plot threads, which is the number one problem with the show, for in my opinion, was once they went past the books, the writers are good. All right, so I'm going to say this. The writers are very, very good at adapting the works of George R. R. Martin. They are not good at trying to write on their own.
Agreed, 100%.
Wow. I mean, that was where, I mean, once you get into season 6, and like, you notice that season 6 is like, all of a sudden it's a shorter season. It's like, well, it's because they don't know what to do anymore. I mean,
I'd go so far as to say, like, I think the plot points that happen, like, I assume Game of Thrones ends at this point with Jon killing Daenerys. That's how it's always going to end in my mind. Like, that's kind of a given.
I'm pretty sure that was a George R. R. Martin, this is definitely happening, this has to happen thing that he told them.
Yeah, because, they were offering to do 10 seasons. Like, they're like, hey, we'll do 10 seasons, 10 episodes each. But then D&D, and when I reference D&D, I don't mean D&D the board game. D&D is in reference to D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, I believe his name is. The two assholes who'd ruin the end of the series, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, so, yeah, like, adapting the work was solid. It was great. But I think, like, it was a combination of them trying to rush and get this wrapped up, which is why would you consider going down to just 6 episodes and 4 of them are hour and a half long when you could have just done, like, I saw a really cool breakdown online where it was like, okay, season 8 is the Night King arc. Season 9 would be the arc with them taking down Cersei. And then season 10 would be Daenerys' rise and fall.
That's too long.
Yeah, I go so far as to say,
I feel like they could have done it in one season, just with 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
I would give you that. But I think spacing them out a little bit more would also kind of wrap up some extra little things here and there. Like, you could, like, part of my biggest... Like,
remember, season 7 was short. Season 7 was only, 7 episodes?
Yeah.
And so even there, it's like, they could have, like, even... I don't know, it just... Well, the thing is, what became very obvious to me is, they don't know how to write as rich... they just don't know how to write the way George R. R. Martin tends to write. So, alright, so the first 5 seasons are almost entirely all about social and political intrigue. Like, it's all about shades of gray, like, he's kind of good, but kind of not, they're kind of good. There's all these moralities and loyalties and alliances, and it was still games being played, and that's what made it really interesting and I feel like that's what made it truly interesting to the average viewer, was the fact that it didn't just focus on, dragons and magic and dragons. It was about the people, and it was about this political intrigue. Well, once you get to, like, season 6, everything starts to be like, this is bad guy killed by good guy. And that's the way everything's written. That eventually, bad guy has to be killed by good guy. And also, the idea that in order for a good guy to kill a bad guy, the bad guy has to be truly bad. Instead of, good guy might kill kind of good guy, which is more meaningful and more interesting. It's like, why did they kill, why would a good guy kill off for somebody else that's kind of good, actually? What was the issue here? What was the problem here? You don't have to make somebody super evil to kill them off. And I think that's something that George R. R. Martin did constantly in the first 5 books is, there's people going to war with each other that don't really disagree all that much. And there's people conniving against each other, working against each other, and all these different loyalties and different things that people want to do. And it's... And then after season 5, and when you start to get in season 6 and 7, it's all about just, there's a bad guy. We are the good guys. We kill the bad guys. And the previous seasons were never that cut and dry. The previous seasons were never that black and white. The morality just kind of became to, all right, so we need to make somebody really evil so we can have the good guy kill them. And when the rest of the books, or the books and the rest of the seasons were totally not about that.
So I'm gonna just dive into the shit that I think just didn't make any sense.
Sure.
Okay.
Season.
Yeah.
Because okay, so in this last season, I mean, we talk about how like the first 2 episodes I thought were really good. Like it was the introduction of all these story arcs all starting to come together.
Yes,
You
I
have
agree.
reunions. You have like welcomes. Even the meeting with like Bran in the courtyard and fucking Jaime Lannister.
Yeah.
Were fucking great. Like it's a nice little tying. And then you have like, you know, a part of Jaime's storyline coming through. Like, you know what? Yeah, he is the Kingslayer. He did kill the Mad King. Because, you know, and he has mentioned in previous seasons, would you really sit there and watch a king murder millions of people because he said so? Like, no. Like, he despite the bullshit they ended him with, his story arc was like redeeming. He was on par with Theon to have one of the best redemption arcs on the fucking show.
You're talking about Jaime, right?
Jaime, yeah. He was on par with Theon to have one of the best redemption arcs because Theon had an absolutely wonderful redemption arc. I mean, but anyway, so like you have the meetup, you have like that moment before, and one of my favorite shots of like the second episode leading up to the Night King fight was that moment when they're all gathered around drinking alcohol and like sing a song, and Podrick just starts to sing that song, which was just so good. Like, it sets the mood just right. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you have the night, you know, the big battle with the undead, which I actually thought was pretty good.
Oh yeah.
A lot. I mean, you granted there was a lot of fucking plot armor active on that.
Oh yeah. Holy crap.
So,
there again,
which is fine.
All right, and that goes to honestly a point that I'd like to expand on larger. Not right now, because I want you to continue, but that's what happens when you write plot threads backwards.
Yeah.
But please go on.
So then you have the big fight, and then you have Arya killing the Night King, which, by the way, totally cool with.
Yeah, yeah.
Although, I mean, I get it, like, she killed him, she's an assassin, but it felt like this whole season or the whole show was building up to having Jon fight the Night King. Like, that's what it felt like the build-up should be. And then it's a character from another story arc that comes by and kills him. So, I'm not mad that Arya did it. I feel it could have been better.
I think when it comes to the way it's going to be written in the books, there's going to be better reasons for it happening the way it happens. It's definitely there again. That's definitely a George R.R. Martin signed off, plot thing that he wants to happen. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure he hasn't decided what all will make that less plot armor-ish and more meaning and more makes sense within the world.
Yeah,
but it also feels very kind of R.R. Martin subversiveness, like the idea that you don't get what you want. Like that's what the books are known for.
Yeah.
The person that does the thing isn't necessarily the person you want to do the thing. Like it's Theon Greyjoy's whole arc is based on like, yeah, you hate this guy, but also you're gonna feel real bad for him real quick.
Yeah,
but
and that being said, like there's that quote flying around with like, art isn't democracy. You don't get to choose what's decided. And I'm not trying to change the storyline. Like, I get that's what was written and that's what was presented, and that's fine. The way it was, we got to point A to point B is the part that fucking sucks.
Sure.
Like Jon being the one who killed Daenerys, that's fine.
Yeah.
That was going to happen.
That particular thing definitely signed off on.
Yeah.
But
like, I get that. It's the journey that I have a problem with, not the destination.
So and I think I have to loop back on a topic we talked about, kind of the idea of adapting. If you told me that for like 7th and 8th season, D&D got given a list of bullet points from R.R. Martin that was like, okay, here's the major plot points, and was told, okay, figure it the fuck out yourselves now, I would totally believe that, because that's how these seasons feel to me, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
you gotta hit these
and
points.
I feel it, yeah, and on the, and you're talking about, with Jon being the one to actually kill Daenerys, it's like, and this kind of comes from the writing backwards thing I just mentioned, in that they wanted that to happen, but to make that happen, instead of just making it happen and being, going against going against the grain, as George R. R. Martin likes to do, as going against expectations, they're like, we have to, in order for the good guy to kill the bad guy has to be bad first. So let's make her, all of a sudden, just insanely murderous.
Yeah.
And so that just shows me that they were right. They wrote this thing backwards, and I can tell, because things like that, it's like, and also it goes with we have to make good guys and bad guys for our show, even though that's never what George R. R. Martin ever did, ever. I mean, even some of the purest characters have things about them that are, like, morally and ethically, like, I mean, for instance, the whole Theon Greyjoy thing actually reminded me of that, because, like, Ned Stark, Theon Greyjoy was a hostage.
Yeah.
He was a hostage.
The show glosses over that some, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that, I mean, alright, so the shirt that I wore the other day to the showing is one with the quote that Tyrion says to Theon, which is, your loyalty to your captors is touching.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I know he was a captive, but he was also kind of brought in to be part of that family.
The show does not do a
he
great
was
job
always clear
Greyjoys.
where his place was.
Yeah, the Greyjoys are like one part Vikings and one part like samurai
Pirates.
stereotype in the show. Like
Yeah.
the concept of honor and family to them runs a lot deeper than the show ever pays homage to. Like
Yes.
Like King Greyjoy, I'm blanking on his name right now. The dad, Balon, like, he's earned that title as king of the Iron Islands kind of thing. Like, dude is not a pushover, and like he dies in a similar manner kind of thing, kind of in a similar paranoia. But like the dude is sitting there scheming constantly how to get up one on Ned Stark kind of thing. Like the guy,
What I'm saying is they started to get into, all right, so we've got this plot, we've got these plot points we need to lead to. But the way that they want to lead to those plot points is just so contrived and so ordinary. Like I said, they have to have a clear good guy and a bad guy, when at no part in the rest of the season was there, other than maybe Ramsay, because he was just like, he was murderous, but murderous with no real point. Whereas, I mean, honestly, even Ned Stark is kind of murderous.
Yeah,
but there's a point to what he does.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's the thing, is like, they just got into this, we have to make Daenerys bad so that Jon can kill her, when it would have been, for me, way more meaningful is, Daenerys is just showing signs that she could be dangerous, and which would make Jon killing her way more of a moral quandary and way more interesting. And I feel like he's probably going to do that in the books. She's not going to just suddenly go from zero to genocide.
Well, so can I touch on that idea for a second, actually?
Okay.
The books actually kind of establish early on, like in the first book, that Daenerys is unhinged is the wrong word, but definitely potentially her father's daughter kind of thing. Like there are, and the way the book plays with this idea is they do a really good job of framing them as the right thing, like the heroic thing to do at the time. But you take a step back, and like some of the stuff she's okay with and signs off on and kind of carries out herself is kind of from the opposite side, not great. So this the kind of the heel turn that people found so surprising, it's there. The issue is there's not a lot of, like, the books do a better job of emphasizing some of the brutality she will go to, and kind of the eye for the eye policy she kind of enforces time and time again. Like like my favorite joke coming out of season 8 was, man, everyone who named their kid Daenerys or Khaleesi's got to be kicking themselves right now. If you've read the books, you know it's kind of a dangerous thing to name your kid after anyone in the books, because...
Well, in the books, they make it clear that it's still a cursed lineage.
Yeah.
Because of massive inbreeding.
Yeah.
But it's still very much a very super cursed lineage. But, yeah, it's just for them to, figure out what to do with her. There again, like, after the books, after they outran the books, so their characterization of her was just good guy and then bad guy instead of morally ambiguous, which is the way that he tends to write most of his characters. They're all morally ambiguous. I mean, even Jon Snow, who's probably kind of one of the purer characters.
Yeah, annoyingly so in the books.
Yeah, but he kind of is. He has his own moral issues.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted to straight up leave the wall. I mean, he wants to do that in both media, in both versions. He wants to leave the wall to help his family out, but he's driven by duty. And so he's probably the least morally ambiguous, but there's some there as well. And yeah, it's it's like they forgot what moral ambiguity is, and they forgot that it's actually, you don't have to have good guys and bad guys.
Yeah, I'm also talking more about the fact that, like, as early as season 1, you have Daenerys totally cool with her brother getting murdered via molten gold. Like, it's played off as a heroic moment.
But it was clear that her brother was basically raping her too.
Oh yeah, no, like it's a moral thing where it's like, yeah, how we got to here, this totally makes sense, but the show didn't kind of put the effort into emphasizing like how totally okay she is with how kind of brutal the death is.
There again, like, he was seriously abusing her.
Yes,
and so I don't think that was a sign at all. I think that was I just killed my rapist.
Yeah,
and now I get his power.
Yes, I was more kind of getting at the idea that, like, there are signs to Daenerys will go hardcore as early on as the first kind of couple episodes.
I don't really see that.
So okay.
And definitely, it's not played at all in the series,
sure.
in the TV series.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
So there are moments where she is vicious, but the people she's been vicious to have always been her enemies.
Yes.
It's been the slave masters at Yonkai. It was when she crucified the other slave owners in Marine.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always been people she's given a chance to. It's never all of a sudden been, you know what, fuck this town, fuck King's Landing.
Yeah, she has yet. I mean, the thing is, she hasn't raised any area and just like, oh, civilians, whatever, and just like she has a self-righteousness, that's her most dangerous trait, is her self-righteousness. Really, it's not that she's crazy. That's the thing, and that's why I feel like the characterization of her is just going off the deep end and just being homicidal all of a sudden is a real break from feeling, and they did play on this a little bit in the TV series, self-righteousness, like that, and they did talk about this in even in last season, is that she is incredibly self-righteous, that she really feels like what she does is the right thing, and she's really driven by that. She feels like, and she feels super strongly about her birthright as well. The Iron Throne being her birthright.
I would also throw in the challenge here of, regardless of how she gets to crucifying a couple hundred people, she still crucifies a couple hundred people.
Yeah. All enemies. No, but that's the point.
No, but my point being, like, it's the idea of its enemies is kind of a subjective thing. Like, she goes from 0 to 100. Could she be better than her enemies in that case? Yeah, but she still chooses to crucify a couple hundred people just as they would, kind of thing. And you can make the argument of, well, it goes back to the eye for an eye kind of thing. They are her enemies, but also she's trying to play up this kind of benevolent slave-free or queen angle of it, but she will go for the throat at a low provocation.
But the people of King's Landing did nothing to her.
Yes.
Literally nothing. You didn't even hear them cheering against her or something, or talking poor of her. That never happened. She never saw them, even. She didn't even give them a chance to welcome her. She just rolled in and was like, "No, you all die," for no reason, no stated reason. It was like they went to the women be crazy trope, so that they could justify killing her, and that's a dumb reason.
It was so poorly done. Because she literally it's a light switch. Like, I get that she is, like, she's upset that Missandei's dead. And I get that. She's totally justified.
No, and when she was and she was kind of not in a great mind state because of what Jon revealed to her, of his, him being actually the true heir, or at least the heir in line first.
Yeah, and her whole thing is, hey, we're going to break the wheel. So in reality, that part really isn't that big of an issue, even though they make it to be more of an issue, because people followed her before people found out that Jon was a thing. But Jon also had people follow him before anybody knew he was a fucking Targaryen to begin with.
Yeah.
He just naturally led people. They could have gone with that angle and really kind of pushed that further, but at this point, it was just like, oh, hey, I'm a Targaryen. Oh, well, you could be competition, even though I'm breaking the wheel and I have a dragon.
Well, so and maybe this is something that kind of it comes out of the books when you had to watch the kind of behind the Game of Thrones thing, which is not an excuse for the kind of like, this should have been in the show. But the idea that Daenerys, who's been told for the last kind of X number of years of her life, her
entire life,
she deserves the Iron Throne, and B, she's going to show up, people are going to welcome her. That doesn't happen. She kind of shows up, and people are like, okay, yeah, whatever. You're a Targaryen.
Yeah, and if she's going to rule...
But they didn't openly revolt. They didn't say... There wasn't like a big sign saying, Daenerys, go home.
Yeah. But they're also... But again, like, remember back to like the early days of people telling her things like, you're going to show up and the people will overthrow whoever's in charge because you're the rightful heir, kind of thing. Like that is a idea addressed in the show and hammered on in the books.
Yeah, and then in the show, it's never brought up again at that point. Yeah. Ever. Like, they brought it up in the beginning, and it was like, oh, it's just telling tales of this. And then it literally meant no fucking consequence anyway, because she decided she was going to rule in fear, which is fine, but you can rule in fear without having to massacre an entire fucking kingdom.
Yeah, like, I mean, holy crap.
You already have the Dothraki, you already have the Unsullied, and you have a fucking dragon. If you were going to rule with fear, you literally had everything you needed to keep people in line.
Yeah, you didn't need...
Already.
She just... I mean, it literally, the raising of King's Landing was dumb and needless, poorly done, no reason for it, no warning, and it reeks of being written backwards. And being written backwards by people who think that morality is always black and white.
Yeah, and not to mention... For a long time, her advisors, Tyrion and Varys, who were supposed to be two really smart guys, were pretty fucking stupid this entire last season.
They just made them all of a sudden dense. I mean, Tyrion's main thing is he doesn't trust or have that strong a loyalty in anything. That he's always had, like, Tyrion also hedges his bets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
and he's supposed to be clever, but
and Varys as well. Like, Varys is the number one king of hedging bets, and that's another character that they did a massive disservice in the end. It's like, that's how he dies?
Yeah. It's like
he survived, like, he's even says straight up, like, I have lived through many kings, I have been an advisor to many kings. It's like, and you've been awfully careful to survive this long to do that, because you've been a master of the whispers for all of these rulers. And so him being so dumb and then also Tyrion being that dense and all of a sudden super trusting and naive. Tyrion?
Yeah.
Naive?
No.
Tyrion's the opposite of naive, and they just turned him into a naive moron. The same with Varys. It's like they made them both incredibly naive and nonsensical, when the rest of the series, they're pretty practical in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So you have two advisors who are fucking morons at that point, and you have a guy who, even though he says or even though people say he could technically be the heir, doesn't want to be king. So what's your competition and what's your reasoning to want to burn down the entire fucking city? It's stupid. Like, there's stuff at that point that just doesn't make any sense. Like, at that point, Arya could have just gone into King's Landing and killed Cersei. But, she chooses not to, and that's fine. And then she just literally becomes useless the rest of the season.
Well, it goes along.
Sucks.
I feel like that they were made like that there again because of writing backwards. And in this case, the writing backwards happened with, we have to have Daenerys be able to pull this off without anybody really meaningfully standing in her way. So how do we do that? But her advisors are usually telling her to do not dumb things. Okay, oh well, so we just need to make sure that at least one advisor dies and the other one is completely useless. And so that's their backwards writing to get to another part of the backwards routing they tried to do to get to Daenerys sacks King, or raises King's Landing. They had to write backwards and say, because they realized that Tyrion and Varys would both be telling her, what? No, don't do that thing. That's literally the worst thing you could possibly do. Why would you even say that? So to get rid of them saying that to her, because she usually listens to them too. That's the other thing. They've established that she listens to her advisors. A lot, actually. As a matter of fact, she listens to them constantly. The only reason she survived this long is because she kept listening to all of her advisors, to be perfectly honest. So they had to get rid of her sensible advisors that she had been listening to, and to do that, they had to get rid of them in the most ham-fisted, dumb way by just completely changing their characters into dense morons.
Yeah.
And I really do think that came from writing backwards.
Yeah. I think we're pretty much in agreement they did write this. They wrote, this is where you need to end.
Yeah.
You can fill in the journey from point A to point B at that point. And the problem is they dropped the ball. And in fact, I'll bring in a couple little things that I think these are the things for me that absolutely make no fucking sense. And I just want to bring them up because they stood out so much to me that I have to make this a bullet point.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jon kills Daenerys. Understandable. Fucking Drogon shows up, sees Daenerys is dead, sees a sword in her, and then decides to burn down the Iron Throne, doesn't kill Jon, scoops up the evidence of her body, and flies away. Mind you, a couple scenes ago, when Jon went to go visit Tyrion, guards took his fucking swords away, so he went in unarmed to go see Tyrion as a prisoner. They took his sword. They let him hang on to his swords, and Daenerys walked into the Iron Throne room and was completely by herself with no guards. Okay, sure, that makes fucking sense, especially after she's already been showing that her advisors and people close to her may be fucking questionable at that. Considering they just executed Varys because he was spreading the whole thing about Jon being a Targaryen. They're not going to disarm the fucking other Targaryen there. Okay, fine, whatever. So Drogon scoops up the body, takes off. Jon is sitting there guilty. Fucking Grey Worm and the rest of the Unsullied show up. And their job was, you know what? This guy, okay, mind you, a minute ago, what's it called? What's the name? Grey Worm was literally slaughtering Lannisters who had already surrendered, just needlessly because he fucking could.
Yeah.
Just slaughtering them. Whatever.
I don't get that either. Like, Grey Worm of all... He's never been dishonorable like that. He's always been slavishly devoted to Daenerys, yes. But
Sorry, go ahead.
And they even made it clear that that wasn't on a direct order. Not really. It was just like, well, I guess we should just kill all the people now.
Yeah. So he starts to show that clearly he's not following a specific order. He's doing it because he's emotionally upset about the situation. Okay, that's fine. So then they storm, I can only assume because this is all off-screen because this is fucking stupid, because they take a bunch of important scenes and they're off-screen in the first fucking place, which is dumb. Grey Worm shows up, I'm assuming, sees that Daenerys, there's a blood plot, nobody can see where Daenerys went. All they know is Drogon took off, and basically at that point, Jon has to admit, hey, I killed Daenerys. And Grey Worm's reaction was, I just finished slaughtering all these fucking Lannisters. I'm going to put Jon in jail and invite all the other lords of Westeros politics to decide his fate. Since when the fuck does Grey Worm give a shit about Westeros politics?
Yeah.
His goal was to protect his queen and to fight for her. And if you see a guy who killed your fucking queen, you're not going to sit there and invite the other fucking lords from around the country to be like, well, let's decide what we're gonna do with Jon. No, you would fucking kill him on the spot.
Well,
fucking stupid.
So we have no idea how that whole thing plays out.
Because it was off screen, which is stupid.
Right, and I don't agree with that, but also it's unfair to comment on what exactly happened. Like it's that is a shitty plot hole that you could fill a variety of ways, but like just as likely Jon goes and surrenders and people go, no, you didn't kill her. He goes, yeah, I did, and then they go up to it's like, oh shit. Like that transition is bad and awkward and doesn't make a lot of sense, but like we can make just as many arguments for Grey Worm never goes up there and Jon just goes downstairs and surrenders as you can for he should have been dead in the throne room.
Yeah, and so then at that point, still though, even if that was the case, why would Grey Worm give a shit about Westeros politics and go summon all the other lords from all the other kingdoms to decide the fate of Tyrion and fucking
I don't
Jon?
think Grey Worm does. I don't think Grey Worm's made a single decision for himself, though, that entire series, though, either.
So who schedules that meetup and who handles that?
Who knows? Like, there are still advisors left.
Who? Give me... Let's pull one advisor
Davos.
that was left from that. Davos?
Davos was never. He was never really that well.
He was never a Daenerys
But he's
advisor.
still,
he's never.
still semi in charge of things. Like that.
But
you wind up with the kind
he's
of
not he's not a Daenerys advisor. So why would Grey Worm trust him? Grey Worm would probably trust something to a certain extent. Trust something said by gosh, I can't even remember his name now. The dude that loved her and she would never love him. What's his name?
Dario Naharis?
No.
Oh, Jorah.
Yeah, Jorah.
But he's dead.
That's what I'm saying. But I mean, he would have been the only person that Grey Worm would listen to, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He would be the only person that, because that's the thing. He's another one of her trusted advisors, and he would have listened to him too. But he wasn't around. And he doesn't know Davos Seaworth from a hole in the ground, so why would he trust that dude?
Yeah.
I mean,
so again,
and there again, he has an army.
Yeah.
The Unsullied, we say that he follows Daenerys. The Unsullied follow him without question.
Right, but I could also make the exact same argument of Jon doesn't surrender to his behind Northern lines. Like it's not worth our time at this point to kind of spend a lot of time nitpicking this one transition. I think we'll agree it's a bad transition, but like it's you can devil's advocate and shit on this one as much as you want. The issue is we just don't know. There's nothing in the show that spells out how it goes. It's just a really bad plot hole.
Yeah,
that's fair. So let's touch on the meeting that these guys have afterwards with all the lords and ladies of Westeros, which represent their respective kingdoms. So let's touch on that.
Yeah,
Grey Worm brings Tyrion. And somehow Grey Worm, who's the one trying to figure out and decide the fate, comes up lose-lose in this fucking scenario, and even then it doesn't have any significance because he fucks off to Narth anyway?
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're gonna... And it felt like it was a stupid little inside joke. We'll send Jon to the wall. Yeah. Throughout the rest of his life with the fucking wall people.
The non-existent, brother, Yeah, I mean, there's no more need for the wall. It's not like it's just it's just ham-fisted wanting to give people a fairy tale ending. And you know what? And this is something I told people straight up. I thought that Arya, my favorite character, was totally gonna die in this season.
Yeah,
I really thought she was gonna die in this season. I mean, I'm just saying because I felt like that there's plot reasons where she very well could have. All right, none of my predictions came true. I'm kind of glad. I think it was I think the way things turned out was more interesting, at least the things I made predictions on. I predicted Arya would die in a battle with Jon Snow.
That's actually kind of cool. But so just because I don't want to lose my train of thought on this one, I'm going to finish up this last part here real quick. So you have the fate of Jon decided. Tyrion becomes the hand of the new king, who's Bran the Broken, Never mind Bran the Raven. No, it's just, hey, Bran the Cripple over there. He'll be our new king.
Yeah.
That'll work out. Wait, and by the way, shout-outs to fucking Sansa being like, by the way, his dick don't work. So, thank you on that one.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Sansa.
that. Yeah, thanks, Sansa. But anyway, so you have Bran who's there, who basically didn't do shit other than work halfway through the fucking fight with the Night King.
To do nothing.
To get a close-up view of everything, right? So
he was key.
No.
I'm going to argue that Bran was absolutely key to the whole thing, because the Night King wouldn't even have come to Winterfell, period, if it wasn't for Bran. And Bran had to draw him there by warging out to these crows, because it was obvious that once the Night King saw the crows, he could track them to Bran.
No, he already had marked them in the previous season, and he said he can be tracked through the mark. So the Raven warging thing was absolute bullshit. He knew exactly where he was ever since he touched him when he was in that dream world, and he said so several times in the seasons prior.
So, but that still means that the Night King would not have come to Winterfell if he wasn't there.
The Night King was following Bran for the longest time at that point.
Ever since he could see him, but he wouldn't have come to Winterfell. He wouldn't have put himself into this position. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, all right, so this is a tactics thing, and I've actually talked to somebody about this before. All right, so you have this massive army, this massive, ever-growing army of the Night King, and you have a very limited amount of people on the other side. And so, which of these... All right, I'm going to tell you two scenarios. Which of these two scenarios favors the smaller group over the bigger group? Is it the wide-open field, or is it the enclosed room?
The enclosed room.
Absolutely. So they had to draw the Night King into somewhere where his massive numbers wouldn't matter as much. They had to draw him. That's why he wanted to go out with the tree, because he knew, the tree would really, really bring out the Night King. The tree was definitely, the Night King was going to want to go after the tree, too. And that was just like a massive beacon. So they needed to draw him into an area where his numbers wouldn't matter as much, where he was way more vulnerable. And so, Bran was key to that entire battle. If he wasn't there, it wouldn't have gone down that way. Night King would have just stayed in the sky. He would have just stayed on his dragon and just used the ice breath on everything. He would never have come to the ground. The
only reason he came to the ground is because he was knocked off his dragon, though. He was in the air already attacking King's Landing. He got knocked off his dragon.
He could have gotten back on.
Well, I mean, at that point, he's still coming after Bran. He was going to come to Winterfell one way or another. Bran was bait, and that's all he was. He literally was just like, I'm going to throw you out a hook here, and he didn't serve any purposes.
And so without Bran there, they wouldn't have gone down that way. And without Bran knowing that, Bran was actually thinking strategically. There again, Bran was like, all right, so we need to draw him to this smaller area. I mean, that's why you saw that 6 archers were able to take out tons and tons of people, because they had it all enclosed. They had it all, it was all tunneled off. And so whenever the rest of the walkers came, it was 6 archers that just slaughtered tons.
Well, that wouldn't have mattered because they would have started climbing over the walls anyway.
What's that?
So they could have just climbed around the surrounding walls of the garden anyway. So
they weren't climbing the walls.
They could have at some point, though. The thing is, the Night King always knew where he was. So him warging just to be like, hey, I'm going to get a better view, that's all it was. He already knew exactly where he was, and he was going to get there one way or another. But I mean, I guess we'll agree to disagree on that one. But
he wasn't going to come to a place where he could be killed easily. He wasn't going to run into the small area that does not favor him when his troops are dumb, basically. That's the thing. His troops are in large numbers, but they're dumb. Whereas, those 6 archers, which is all it took to just hold off a lot of forces for a very long time, but only because it was a small area. So the whole thing was massively strategic. It would not have happened otherwise. If Bran wasn't there, the Night King would have never come. And if they hadn't specifically thought to put Bran in a strategic position, then the Night King would never have been vulnerable.
So I guess my question to this goes, because earlier we were talking about the warging thing. If Bran hadn't warged during the fight, would have it made any difference?
Possibly.
I think him literally just sitting there with or without warging would have had the same outcome. He didn't have to warg, and he couldn't warg into anything useful. He couldn't have tried to warg into a dragon. He couldn't try to warg into... I don't think he can unwarg into undead, so I wouldn't even touch that one. But, like, he provided nothing. He couldn't do some scoping out, some intel. He provided nothing to that fight, other than literally sitting there and being bait.
There wasn't really intel to scope out, and they already had people out there watching for things. The thing is, like I was saying, this isn't a smart army that's rolling in. It's just a horde.
Yeah, but at least having an idea of what's out there at that moment would have been usul.
What's out there is a shit ton of undead. Like if
they knew what was out there. It's just all a shit ton of undead. They didn't bring like siege equipment or like, you know, catapults or something. They just brought tons and tons of dead people.
Yeah, it's still like
it's not like there's something to actually scout.
He brings nothing other than literally being bait. That's my point.
But that's pretty important bait. Because he was the bait, otherwise Night King would not have been killed.
Yeah, but you have a guy who can see past, present, and future.
He can't really see the future.
I disagree wholeheartedly with this one, and I'll tell you why.
He has ideas of the future. He has thoughts of what might happen, but he has made it clear that he said he lives in the past. He said that straight up.
He lives in the past.
He said it straight up.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And the reason I argue this is because in the scene where he gets elected king, they look at him, hey, do you want to be king? And his whole response was, why do you think I came down here?
Yeah, but maybe it's because he didn't see it happen, but he predicted it was a possibility. I didn't see that as he saw the future. I saw that as he was like, this is a likely outcome.
That they would pick the one guy who has really nothing to add other than being bait to become king. No, honestly, I don't think anyone would have seen that
they would pick the person who is the living embodiment of their history. Yeah, I mean,
but they didn't say the living embodiment of the history.
Yes, they did.
Tyrion's argument said we need a guy with a good story.
The show has emphasized.
But remember
how much
what Sam's argument was?
Well, Sam's argument was democracy, and they laughed at him about that one, and I felt bad.
But Sam had also talked before. It's like this is the embodiment of all human history, the most important. I mean, he's the one who he was a part of the plot to bring the Night King in, because he was like, yeah, they're going to totally go after Bran, because Bran didn't see the future. Bran didn't necessarily know that he would be able to attract the Night King, not necessarily. I mean, it was Sam that had to make the argument that, hey, of course he's going to come after Bran. If I was going to erase all of human history, I would start with that dude.
I could have sworn that Bran himself said the Night King is after him. Because the Night King is always
he knows that the Night King can see him. Yeah, that is.
But they've said that he was always after Bran in the first, or always after the Three-Eyed Raven in the first place. That's why, for the longest time, he has failed to get the Three-Eyed Raven when he was inside the tree, protected by the children of the forest.
But why would? I mean, that's the thing. It's like I don't think Bran can see the future. At no point in the books is it ever established that he has any insight into the future, other than the fact that he has the memories of man, and because of that, he has an easier time extrapolating on the data that he has.
So, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. I think he absolutely can see the future, and it means he knew that Daenerys would lose her shit and literally wipe out millions of people just so he can become king. Because for the longest time, even before that, he's like, I can't be king of Winterfell, even though he's technically the heir to the Wester or to the Winterfell crown or whatever. He's like, I can't be that. I'm just Bran. I'm the Three-Eyed Raven. But then he goes down to fucking King's Landing. He's like, yeah, I knew you'd pick me at king. Let's go ahead and do this. No, that's terrible fucking writing. And there's no real lead up to that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's not supposed to be able to see the future. And at no point in the book,
definitely gives the illusion he does.
At no point in the book, I'll say this Charlie has read further along than I have, but at no point in the book that I ever read has he ever shown that he can see the future.
I can't remember exactly details on this one, so the Bran story is a lot more stuff than the show has, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that gets muddled. Like,
Yeah.
Yes, he has several POV chapters.
If we're more than several, like he's one of the main POVs. Like,
yeah, he is.
I'm racking my brain right now, and I want to say, and I could be wrong because I should have fact-checked some of this stuff beforehand, I don't think Bran's even made it to the Three-Eyed Raven in the books yet.
Mm.
I don't remember. I don't
prior
know.
to the last
I haven't read that
episode,
far.
I would have 100% agreed with you that he can't see into the future because he said, yeah, I live in the past. This is what I see. This is what I do. This and that. I totally get that. Like,
can we just
I
agree to be a
understand that.
cocky piece of shit?
Yeah,
I can agree with
Yeah.
you. He's a little shit for sure.
but
Like,
I think I kind of got that as he was just kind of like joking in a certain sense as well.
he doesn't make any jokes though. He's the Three-Eyed Raven. He said he's not really Bran anymore. That's a Bran thing to do. So, like, again, it just dances around this stupid
Well,
like.
okay, so if we're gonna have me reference the books quickly, like the fact that Bran gets involved means he's not. So, and maybe kind of this is some stuff that got skimmed over in the show. Some the idea of the Three-Eyed Raven is the Three-Eyed Raven is not involved. He does
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
get into Westeros bullshit. The fact that Bran involves himself in the Westeros bullshit means he is still kind of Bran. Like, I know it's a really arbitrary distinction to make, but it's kind
Yeah.
of like a girl is not a girl thing. Like, it's the Arya will never
Why
be
would
a
he even
true
bother
faceless man until
being
she
the
gives
Lord of Winterfell for a while?
Yeah.
Kind of being, I mean, it's, yeah, I think it seems like there's bits of Bran. But
And I mean,
his
I would
his
think-
personality is partially there. I mean, remember the Three-Eyed Raven had a very distinct personality, at least the
Yeah.
way he was portrayed. That
He is a
didn't
guy.
just
He used to
seem
be
like-
a guy.
yeah, I mean, and I think the thing is, Bran is just young, and that's why his personality is still kind of
Yeah.
weak in a certain sense to the weight of the Three-Eyed Raven. But yeah, the former Three-Eyed Raven was very charismatic. Like, even in the way he was written and the types of things he would say, it's like he didn't just seem like a sort of, esoteric guide. He seemed like a dude with the weight of the world on his shoulders.
And part of that is that the Three-Eyed Raven you meet in the show is centuries old. He's not
Yeah.
recently
Yeah.
Three-Eyed Raven. He is so old that anyone who'd remember him has passed. Like, it's the
Way
yeah,
past.
like the who he is as a human is gone. Like that person is dead.
I mean,
all
he
that-
might have been like an Age of Heroes.
Yeah.
Like,
I believe he's a Targaryen too. Actually,
I don't
the one
think...
that you see in the tree. I remember Alt Shift Act does a good video on it. I believe he's related to the Targaryens.
I could be,
Might
but
be.
they never say anything like that in the books.
White Walker might be a Targaryen for all we know. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
again, we are commenting on things that just they're not in the show, and I haven't read the books recently enough to kind of have strong memories of this, so I can't say what isn't book at this point. But yeah, we are once again arguing a plot hole where it's the like, are we comfortable again? Like, I'm not trying to kind of make us have a conclusion, but like it sounds like we're both arguing the ending is weird with Bran in charge. It doesn't not make sense, but also it doesn't totally make sense. It feels kind of, we have an ending.
Yeah, but there again, that was definitely signed off on
Yeah.
by George R. R. Martin. I think
Yeah.
I think even the name Bran the Broken is a nod to the fact that he's the one to break the wheel.
Yeah.
In
And that's
reality,
that's the thing. It's like, and they're really established Bran as a major character in the books. Because
Yeah.
he gets a ton of POV chapters. I mean, holy crap, he gets a
Fucked
ton of
up
POV.
POV chapters too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
so like they have entire like, lengthy chapters dedicated to like the taboos of warging and stuff like that
yeah,
would make no fucking sense in the show, but like the book makes a big deal out of the fact that like that Bran eats a person while warged into the wolf. That's a
Yeah.
big fucking no-no, apparently.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, all the other stuff like that, like the whole warging thing,
Yeah.
it becomes insignificant at that point.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things that there again, they downplay the magic in the TV series in general, and I think for the best for the TV series, at least for what the TV series was presenting.
Yeah, especially because some of the warging in the books is like straight up broken. Like if we're putting this in video game terms, a lot of the mysticism in the books is just, man, did you guys playtest this at all? Like, fucking mages are just broken in this build. What do you mean? They're just wiping people out left and right. They're snapping their fingers. People are carbonizing. Like, man, magic was the right class to roll, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, magic is super OP in the books, and it's really not presented as much in the show. In the show, it's presented as a force, but not nearly the way it is in the books.
Yeah, like
so
the red woman, the Melisandre, like she has like some of her feats early on to prove her whole like red witch thing are just like, man, she drank a lot of poison, like a lot of poison.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think overall though we can agree that just like we're not questioning the destination. I understand the ending's the ending, and I'm not going to argue with what George R.R. Martin's vision is for the ending.
But the lead up,
destination or the journey was just dumb.
Yeah, the lead up, and I feel like it was dumb because they fell onto classic TV show tropes, as well as a ham-fisted look at morality to build up to good guy win, bad guy lose.
And I might argue that we were always going to wind up here unless R.R. Martin got real fast at writing the books. Like the show falls apart some without that structure, and
it falls apart majorly.
Yeah, like I'll go so far as to say like all of like, and this is kind of me being, I'm gonna push my glasses up my nose for a second. So many of the fan theories that people fucking love for Game of Thrones do not come from the shows. There's just not the kind of excessive detail in the show that the books have. Like the whole Jon's a Targaryen and the true heir thing, it works in the show, but like that fan theory could not have been sussed out from the show, really. Like it makes sense, but it's not there. Like there's a reason the whole Tyrion might be a Targaryen subplot doesn't exist. It's just impossible to do in the show. To get into some of the dumb ones, the dragon underneath Winterfell is something that would not work in the show. The idea that like Drogon might have kids out there also does not work in the show. The like level of fireproof bullshit Daenerys is only kind of sort of works in the show, but again, not really. Like fucking Frankenstein the Mountain, they're not going as far as that dude is in the books kind of thing. Like it's the so many of the things people latched onto, why was this resolved in the show, don't originate from the show and don't have the threads to tie off in a meaningful way. And that's the problem. Like it's the people went into this expecting the endings of the books, and you do not have any of the kind of structure to actually get there. Like it's the love it or hate it, the ending, season 8 is the ending for the show.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Caps it off.
Yeah, it makes sense. It caps it off. It ties up the plot lines that exist. The issue is that you've had show plot lines muddled with all of us book nerds being like, but what about this deep cutting lore we know about because of the books that does not exist in the TV show? Like hell, so many characters are merged and cut that like, if you read the book, like, how the fuck did you cut that character? But in the context of the show, it's they don't matter at fucking all. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like John Connington, Jane Poole, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
I super don't care about those characters.
Yeah, and
maybe they'll do something cool with them in the books eventually.
And we have these
but it's fine. You can only focus on so many things. It's already getting pretty busy in the show as it was.
And it's also one of those ones where it's like some of these endings suck because they're not written in the books yet. Like what the hell is going on with the House of Black and White and Arya is not finished. What's going on with Bran and the Raven is not finished. How that affects Bran isn't even fleshed out. Like fuck, in the books, Jon Snow is still dead.
Well, in the books, the Tyrells are still alive.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dorne is useful.
I mean, Myrcella, as far as I know, Myrcella is still alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, like, yeah, there's just yeah.
Is
just,
Ramsey dead in the books yet? I actually can't remember on that one.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. He's basically oh yeah, no, I don't remember.
Littlefinger's still kicking, definitely.
Yeah. Though I think he is probably set to die. I mean, I think that was a signed off thing. But yeah, once they got past the books, they went to the classic TV pacing and TV tropes and fiction tropes, and it doesn't work.
And I think for better or worse, you have to. Like, could you do an entire season of The Night King? Sure, but you don't.
No.
But you can't because you have none of the background to make that season work. Yes, I'd have loved an entire season of Night King, but that stuff you can't in the context of the show. Like, maybe there should have been an entire season of them marching on Westeros or marching on King's Landing. Sure, yeah, but again, the show is not set up to handle kind of a prolonged siege story. And Cersei's stuff is tied up enough. Like, fuck, the whole Cersei may or may not be pregnant thing gets dropped because it doesn't matter in context of the show. Yeah. I suspect it'll be a thing in the book. Like, there's a whole theory that she gives birth to a White Walker in the books.
Well,
yeah.
It is said that, I mean, that was her, her prophecy that she would outlive all of her children if she has a White Walker as a child.
Yeah, and the show also has... Yeah, there's also the problem of, like, the books, like, people got caught up, like, oh, what about The Princess Promised? The books have that, too, but they also, in the same breath of bringing that up, spend a lot of time hammering on the idea, prophecies are bullshit, who cares about the future, make your living now, kind of thing. Like, it's the... And that doesn't work for TV fans because they want an ending. They want that ending they built up in their heads, which is why it's like the season was bad. It was not as bad as the internet wants you to believe because this is the ending for the show. It's a sucky ending, but this, based on the plots of the show, is what you get.
Yeah, based on the plots that they didn't follow or the ones that they dropped entirely, they just closed off the only ones that they ever bothered to actually continue. Like I said, they just were like Dorne, blah, Bravos, blah, Iron Islands, blah. Yeah. But and so they just I mean they capped off the plots just incredibly unsatisfyingly. And that's what I think that's what people are a little more bothered about is the plots are closed, but the lead up, and we've just harping on this, but the lead up was poor.
And they've been tantalized with more. And yes, there will be more in the books. I'm almost certain of that fact. But it doesn't change the fact that, like, there's not more to build off of in the context of what this is. And so I guess I'm kind of using this as kind of a transition into our final question shaper round, if you will, if people are comfortable with that. I think we've hit everyone else's kind of major points so far.
Yeah, I think I've talked. I've mentioned everything I've written down anyway.
So I kind of prepped you to this question a couple days ago, so you had a chance to think about it. We live in a world where great TV shows get canceled all the time. The Firefly fans out there will forever be gnashing their teeth at what could have been, et cetera, et cetera. Would you have rathered no ending or the ending we got?
All right, I'll go first.
Sure.
The thing is, I wasn't super dissatisfied with the ending, and so I'd much rather have an actual ending to a series, to actually have at least some sort of closure, even if the closure wasn't the perfect closure I wanted, or or if I disagreed with it, it was closure. That's the thing. It's like, and I kind of want my media to have closure. It's like 2 other of my favorite series are ending. Actually, one of them ended about the same time as Game of Thrones did.
Yeah.
Star versus the Forces of Evil. Another series that I am a big fan of, My Little Pony, also ending this year, as far as I know. And so, it's like, I'm super happy that those shows actually get to end rather than just being lopped off and just, I guess I never know.
As I've gotten older and had shows just kind of fizzle out on me on numerous occasions, I have realized the kind of joy that is when something has an end to it. Good or bad, and the fact that someone said, this is finished, this is the ending we're saying is the ending, is a nice thing to have. Like, fuck, think about how many times Futurama got canceled for us to finally get a satisfactory kind of tie-off for that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will agree. I'm glad it's over, but that I also am allowed to critique. The shit out of the ending.
The final season of this show took the show from being Jen's favorite TV show to I never want to watch Game of Thrones again. I am not using this as a criteria to measure whether or not this is good, but like, imagine how much more pissed off you'd be if season 8 just didn't happen.
Yeah.
No, I will agree. I think I think I mean, I'm glad it played out. I'm just not glad the way it played out. So it pretty much went full Dexter.
Oh yeah.
It literally ended with one of the characters we loved living in the woods, isolated from everyone else that he originally knew. Literally. Just throwing fucking flannel and lumberjack axe. That's all he needed.
As a proud member of Team Torment, I thought the ending was great, but...
Oh no, I love Torment, don't get me wrong. And I think we'd all agree we're glad that Ghost got his pats, as a well-deserved doggo should.
Yes.
But this ending literally went full Dexter.
Is it sad that's the biggest spoiler for the 8th season, that John finally fucking pats Ghost?
Oh, yeah. He's a good doggo.
Yeah.
So,
but I am all right. So it's almost too fairy tale for me, honestly. Some of the parts of the ending, which I kind of have to assume that George R. R. Martin signed off on that, as well as, where the remaining Starks ended up, and and it's showing that the three of them, or the four of them, where they ended up eventually, and it's like they kind of, I don't know, almost too storybook for me. But man, I am glad that Tormund and Jon Snow get to be bros again. Yeah. How can you not love Tormund?
Yeah, a character made popular by the TV show, so he stuck around.
Oh yeah. But yeah.
Are we Game of Thrones out? Have we said all we have to say for the time being about Game of Thrones?
I guess the last thing I'll add is people who bring up that fucking quote from George R. R. Martin, art isn't a democracy. You don't get to decide what the ending is.
Yep.
That's never been the criticism. The criticism has been the journey. And
well, it's really, the criticism is of the adaptation eventually, or at what the adaptation ended up becoming, simply because they outran the source material.
Yeah. So, that being said, I'm glad it's over.
Mm-hmm.
It's over.
And well, I won't even touch on how they fucked over Jaime's Lannisters. Everyone knows his character arc went fucking stupid.
See,
anyway.
No, I was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, so again, like, it's one of those ones where it's the people wanted a different ending for Jaime. That's the ending Jaime deserves.
Yeah,
like,
he was not a good
guy. He pulls
guy.
a bitch move and gets buried by rocks.
I mean, the thing is, he was always a complex man of conflicting emotions and conflicting loyalties, that he just, in the end, he just couldn't really deal with it all. And I think it made perfect sense that the only person he ever really cared about
is this manipulative monster of a sister. Yeah,
yeah, and he just couldn't ever get far enough away from that.
Yeah,
couldn't get away from his feelings and emotions. That's his problem with the entire series. He's kind of a thickie and reliant on his emotions. I mean, they joke several times that he's the slowest Lannister. Lannisters are supposed to be known for being clever.
His redeeming feature is he's good at fighting, and that's about it. He's good looking, and he can stab shit good.
Yep, and that's literally it. But yeah, from that, become a more conflicted, interesting person. That's enough of a character arc for me, that he went from just good-looking dude that stabs stuff to horribly conflicted guy with so many different loyalties by the end that he's just a complete mess.
I'm gonna have to disagree on that one. I think he had a really good looking redemption.
No, he didn't.
And then he throws it. He did.
Redemption in what way? I mean, he was already had his.
He starts off as being
his redemption arc.
He starts off as being this one dimensional, like, yeah, I'm this pretty looking dude who, can fight. I'm a Lannister. Fuck everyone else, kind of thing. And you see the conflict arise. he has a moral sense of duty to fight in the North and all that. And like he starts to show that he does care about people in King's Landing. And then when he realizes that, like, hey, yeah, Cersei is literally funneling people into the town to use them as human shields, like, it just, and then he's just like, sorry, I gotta go back. And then he stands in a room and gets crushed by rocks when he could have literally stood a couple feet away and been fine.
He didn't want to live. See, his character arc was actually finding and being, I guess in a certain sense, being sort of okay with where he was and realize, and just, but yeah, in the end, just dying a bit confused and sad.
I would argue Jaime Lannister's arc is he envisions himself kind of this great hero and shit, but he's not. And he just kind of eventually accepts the fact that he is not great. Like, he rides high on, I'm a Lannister and therefore I'm better than people, and he dies knowing, you ain't shit, Jaime Lannister.
But even that, remember, he starts out being the Kingslayer, and he's only the Kingslayer because of a moral quandary. Because that's the thing, like, he had to stop Aerys before Aerys literally, he would have raised King's Landing then. He was on the edge of doing it then. And I suppose that's really what they were trying to mirror here. But I feel like it would have made more sense. I don't know. I think Jaime. I don't know. I think I think that's a thing they're going to play with in the book.
Yeah,
the fact that Jaime had to stop already one sacking of King's Landing, or one raising of King's Landing, and is powerless to stop the second.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I think he has an interesting character arc, but character arcs aren't supposed to be necessarily for redemption. There again, that's too comic book. That's too fairy tale that, oh, they have to come around to be the good guy and be perfect. No, a character arc can also just be complexity. And that's like I said, I'm not even necessarily totally happy with happy endings, period. Because that's not really what the world is made for. But even so, I say happy ending, but only 4 of the Stark kids survived, and the Stark name is effectively dead. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Nobody, even in the somewhat more happy ending that they created in the TV series.
Did you say the Stark name is dead, or do you mean the Lannister?
No, the Stark name is dead as well as the Lannister name.
Yeah, it kind of falls to Sansa.
Sansa, unless she makes somebody take her name, that's gone. And that's not something we've ever seen done ever in the Seven Kingdoms, is for a female to make a male take her name. We haven't seen that happen a single time. So, yeah, I think his arc was, finding it, just becoming more aware of the world and more aware of everything going on and more aware of how messed up everything was, and still being not clever enough to figure out how to do things and not making good choices because there again, he's kind of a thickie. He doesn't make good choices. This is widely established. He makes a lot of bad decisions because of his conflicting loyalties and his conflicting moralities. I mean, that's the thing, he still felt sadness when Joffrey died, and Joffrey was an abject monster. So,
I guess I'll just disagree.
Yeah, I think this is another week after agree to disagree, because we can argue this one back and forth into infinity. Again, because there's just not we don't have. This is again another hole. Like this is something I assume the books will address in more satisfying detail, but in the context of the show, we have nothing else to go on.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. I think we
has that been Game of
Thrones? That there's just the same as there's no more actual Iron Throne.
Yeah.
Also, all right, just to throw in a little thing, symbolism.
Well, I might call this the Ire Throne if we're not careful. So.
Well, in reality, Daenerys broke the wheel only to have it replaced by 2 wheels.
Stop quoting memes that are funnier than your joke is.
They are funny, and I'm going to quote all the fucking memes for this last part. Bran is literally the kid who does nothing on a group project.
Stop it!
Nope.
Have an original joke.
Fuck no.
I'm still just, for me, symbolism.
Yes.
With the
Why
symbolism.
try to? Why make good joke when good joke out there already exists? I'm not claiming they're mine.
Fair
I will
enough.
say they're all the ones I've read on the internet.
Fair enough. Alex continues his job of being the speaker for the internet.
Yep.
All right, that has been us talking about Game of Thrones. If you made it this far, congratulations. You are a trooper and full of stamina. Wow. That's a
Yeah.
lot of Game of Thrones to wade through.
yeah.
Normal podcast will be up next. Thank you for listening in. Yeah.
Come on,
So-
join in for the. It's the last
you know
time,
the
guys.
actual lyrics to Game of Thrones, right? There are lyrics, right?
No,
There are lyrics.
No,
There
Yeah.
are lyrics.
I don't. Well, do you guys want to close it out by
Well,
singing
which
the
lyrics
here?
do you know, Henry? Do you know the fucking
I
Game
don't-
of fucking Thrones lyrics or the actual lyrics?
No, I don't know either. I just know
Oh,
Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, Game
It's-
of Thrones.
it's-
Game of Thrones,
It's-
Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay, so it's Thrones,
Thrones,
yeah,
Game
Game of
of Thrones.
Thrones, yeah, Game of Thrones, Game of fucking Thrones, Game of fucking Thrones, Game of fucking
Thrones,
Thrones, yeah, Game of fucking Thrones.
There's a game of